3, 2.
Hello, my name is Haleigh McCleary, and my research topic is the effects of divorce on children. What led me towards this topic is that I myself am a child of divorce, so I knew that that could power me through these last 9 months of research. Divorce in the United States is a rather common occurrence. According to the National Survey of Family Growth taken by the Center for Disease Control, there were about 800,909 divorces and annulments in 2015 alone, and the divorce rate is currently 3.2 divorces for every 1,000 people. The divorce rate is the highest in males and females aged 20 to 24 and lowest in those aged 35 to 39. When it comes to children, according to Patrick Fagan, a therapist who specializes in child, family, and marital therapy and director of the Marriage and Religion Research Institute, half of the children born this year to parents who are married will see their parents divorce before they turn 18. These children may experience their parents' divorce differently, but Sena Setinkaya from the Adana School of Health and Amen Urson from the Nurse Department of Psychiatry at Balkali Hospital have outlined common stages that children go through when dealing with their parents' divorce. Much like the stages of grief, the first stage is the denial stage of divorce, where children cannot accept the experiences associated with divorce and do not want to accept the separation of their parents. The second stage is the bargaining stage. In this stage, the child tries to fix the damage done by changing their behavior. The child may finish their lessons without complaining or stop fighting with their siblings because of a belief that their misbehaviors caused their parents' divorce. The third stage is the depression stage. While in this stage, the child will be seen as tired, sad, and depressed in living environments at school and at home. They may even have difficulty in controlling their emotions. This stage usually lasts a short while, but does not necessitate a clinical intervention. The fourth and final stage is the acceptance stage. The child finally accepts their parents' divorce by seeing that their parents now have individually happier lives compared to the previous one they had together. Since age at the time of divorce can play a big factor in how accepting a child is of their parents' divorce and their reaction to their parents' divorce, Sitinkaya and Erison also broke down common reactions to divorce depending upon age at the time of divorce. Between birth and the age of 1, the child may show bad tempers. It's difficult for them to adapt to change. They feel pain whenever they are separated from their parents, and they don't feel safe during the times when their parents are together. Between the ages of 1 and 3, change is hard for them. They are scared of the separation, and going from one parent's house to the other can be rather traumatic. They may show bad tempers or cry for the other parent. And they also may want the parent to stay with them, and if one attempts to leave, they will desperately cling on to them. And they may suffer from problems falling asleep and staying awake all night. Between the ages of 3 and 5, they fear being abandoned, feel guilty, angry, nervous, scared, sad, and confused, may be anxious about whether or not they are safe or loved, blame themselves for the divorce, make futile efforts to unite their parents, have difficulty in making visits between parents, return to behaviors such as bedwetting and extreme obedience. Between the ages of 6 and 8, kids feel themselves split in two. They usually feel abandoned, often cry and show bad tempers, feel emptiness and have difficulty in concentrating in school. And if the case of the divorce is not explained, they will find their own way to get it explained. Between the ages of 9 and 12, the divorce and remarriage process is particularly difficult to the child. They begin to understand the family relationship and are more sensitive to conflicts, may fight with their peers or keep away from them, and may start having nightmares and are quite sensitive to the pressures put by their parents with respect to taking sides. Between the ages of 13 and 18, it's rather shocking for a child to see their parents divorce. They may show reluctance in getting involved in emotional relationships, experience a sense of loss and anger, difficulty in concentrating on their lessons at school, and may easily sink into depression. Now we know the stages a child can go through in accepting their parents' divorce and the common reactions of divorce based on age group. we can continue on to the effects their parents' divorce has on them. First, we will look at the psychological effects of divorce. Hyeon Sik Kim from the Department of Sociology at the University of Wisconsin found that children with divorced parents are more likely to drop out of high school and be disadvantaged in their cognitive skills, psychosocial well-being, and social relationships. The validity for Kim's effects stated by Kim are supported by traditional ordinary least squares framework, a method for estimating the unknown parameters in a linear regression model, propensity score matching, a technique that attempts to estimate the effects of a treatment, policy, or other intervention by accounting for the covariates, a variable that is possible predictive of the outcome under study that predict receiving the treatment, and behavioral genetics. Brian Neighbors, an associate professor at Southwestern University with a PhD in clinical psychology, states that boys whose parents would subsequently divorce were characterized as impulsive, aggressive, and excessively energetic prior to the divorce. Girls, on the other hand, were found to be less dysfunctional. Jane Anderson from the University of California finds that divorce diminishes a child's competence in all areas of life: family, relationships, education, emotional well-being, and future earning power, and that children with divorced parents score lower on measure of academic achievement, conduct, psychological adjustment, self-concept, and social relations. It is also found by Esther M. Havroot from the part of the Faculty of Behavioral Sciences at the University of Amsterdam, and was published in the Journal of Divorce and Remarriage, that boys in single mother families report more acceptance and fewer conflicts than boys in stepfather families. But what matters most to the children is not the structure of the family, but the quality of the family. Now that we looked at the psychological effects, we will continue on and look at the effects of divorce on a child's education. Neighbors found in a study comparing a child's grades pre, during, and post-divorce that boys from subsequently divorcing families had significantly poorer academics functioning prior to their parents' divorce than did boys whose families remained intact and girls whose parents divorced, and girls from subsequently divorcing families showed a decline in academic functioning, which began prior to divorce and continued beyond the time of divorce. The American Psychology Association, APA, provided an overview of the literature on the effects of divorce on children, comparing divorce and marital conflict. These two can drastically affect the children in different ways. The APA cites the effects of divorce on children as a child experiencing less financial security, lower academic achievement, more alcohol and cigarette use, and lower rates of employment. And factors such as age of child, time since the divorce, parenting style, financial security, and type and extent of parental conflict can contribute to how well the child adjusts post-divorce and to what extent they experience those effects. On the other hand, marital conflict is a more important predictor of child adjustment over divorce or post-divorce conflict. Children in high-conflict marriages are more likely to experience behavioral and academic problems, including but not limited to disobedience, aggression, delinquency, poor self-esteem, antisocial behavior, and depression. The effects of marital conflict aren't isolated to just childhood in children, but are also seen years after. Young adults who experience a high level of marital conflict during childhood are most likely to experience depression and psychological disorders than young adults from low-conflict families. Now that we have looked at the effects of divorce, we can see what is being done to prevent them. Anderson suggests in her research that divorce can actually be beneficial to children. Children whose parents are involved in high-conflict marriage are more likely to experience the effects stated previously by the APA. One factor that can help with the adjustment of a child post-divorce, as suggested by Joan B. Kelly and Robert E. Emery, published in the Journal of Family Relations, is the frequency of visits between the child and their non-residential parent. Kelly and Emery state that frequency is associated with better child adjustment, but only in low-conflict situations between parents. If the parents have a high-conflict situation, frequency won't be the best thing for child's adjustment because they may witness the conflict between their parents, which has been stated to negatively affect a child. This solution is also backed by the APA. Joint legal custody, often resulting in sharing decision-making, is often associated with more father-child visits, regular child support payments, and more satisfied and better adjusted children. Linda Mahoney provides another solution in the form of teacher-facilitated support. The finding of Mahoney's study, where teachers were asked open-ended questions, found that teachers play a key role in facilitating positive adjustments of children whose parents are divorced. The final solution I'm going to discuss, and one I'm most interested in, is counseling. According to George Cohen from the American Academy of Pediatrics, counseling is an important solution because it helps the child realize that they are not the cause of and cannot be the cure for their parents' divorce. This solution may be the most used solution because of the rise in the moral acceptance of divorce, which possibly suggests that most children are now more likely to seek help after their parents' divorce because it is more widely accepted. But to understand the rise in moral acceptability, we need to look at the history of the divorce rate. The divorce rate in the United States steadily increased during the 1900s, but took a big spike in the 1970s, as seen right here. The divorce rate went from approximately 11 divorces for every 1,000 married couple in the late 1960s to approximately 23 divorces for every 1,000 marriages in 1980. The increase in the divorce rate is attributed to the change in the divorce law in the 1970s. According to Paul Nakoenzi from the Journal of Marriage and the Family, the divorce law prior to the 1970s was a fault-based divorce law. This law was designed to be more restrictive and protect marriage because divorce was only granted if one spouse was found guilty of adultery or cruelty and the other innocent. The consent of the innocent person was needed in order to grant a divorce, and a divorce would be denied if both spouses were found guilty. The no-fault divorce law, which was implemented in the 1970s, was designed to make divorce less restrictive. No one is at fault under the no-fault divorce law, and it recognizes that the breakdown of the marriage is that the spouses can no longer function as a married couple. Consent of both spouses is not required, so one spouse can decide unilaterally to divorce. The spike in divorce rate led to what is now known as the divorce revolution. Majority of the studies done on divorced children were done during this divorce revolution. After the divorce revolution, the divorce rate leveled out, but eventually started decreasing in the 1990s and is still decreasing today. While the divorce rate is decreasing, the moral acceptability of divorce is at an all-time high. According to a poll taken by Gallup every year since 1954, the moral acceptability is on the rise. In 1954, only 53% of Americans believed in divorce. Now, in 2017, 73% of Americans believe divorce is morally acceptable. The moral acceptability has increased 14% in the last 16 years alone. So the dark green line represents the divorce rate. As you can see, it's been decreasing. It's from 2001 to 2017. And the light green line shows the moral acceptability from each poll taken, and it has been increasing almost quite steadily since 2001. My method section consists of a survey given to students through their English classes, one freshman English, one sophomore English, one junior English, and one senior English. The purpose of this survey was to see how likely students would seek the help of counselors if their parents were to divorce, or see if students sought help after their divorce to see if the moral acceptability increased the rate at which students would seek help from counselors. Out of a total of 60 students who were surveyed, 15 were in the 9th grade, 21 were in 10th grade, 12 were in 11th grade, and 20 were in 12th grade. Also, out of those 68, 40 were males, 27 were females, and 1 preferred not to say. So age was represented quite equally, and although males outnumbered females, it was pretty close. I first looked at the data of the participants whose parents went through a divorce. Of the total of 68 students, 30 of the students' parents went through a divorce. When asked, how old were you when your parents divorced, majority stated that they were between the ages of 0 and 5 years old. 17 students stated they were between the ages of 0 and 5. 5 stated that they were between the ages of 5 and 10. And 7 stated that they were between the ages of 10 and 15. And 1 stated that they were between the age of 15 and 18. Shown in this graph right here, which is the distribution of the age range of the child at the time of divorce. The fact that a majority of students between the age of 0 and 5 can explain why 25 out of 29 students didn't seek counseling after their parents' divorce, mostly citing that they were young and didn't understand, or that it didn't affect them as much and that they were too young to remember. This could possibly indicate that younger children adapt quickly to their parents' divorce, or that because of the fact that the children were so young at the time of their divorce, the parents did not deem it necessary to take their child to see a counselor because they were so young at the time of divorce and didn't think the divorce would affect them. The 4 students who sought the help of a counselor after their parents' divorce experienced their parents' divorce in a variety of age ranges. 2 participants experienced their parents' divorce between the ages of 0 and 5. 1 student experienced their parents' divorce between the ages of 5 and 10, and 1 student experienced their parents' divorce between the ages of 10 and 15 years old. This could possibly indicate that age at the time of divorce does not necessitate the need to seek help from a counselor. Instead, the need could be due to circumstances that occurred during, before, or after the divorce. The theory is backed up by the reason provided by the 4 participants of why they sought counseling. 3 out of the 4 students noted outside sources as the reason they sought counseling, such as marital conflict and counseling being requested by a judge, while the 1 student who sought counseling did it for their own well-being, so that they could deal with their emotions and anger. This helps support the idea presented by the APA that marital conflict affects a child more than divorce does. Of the 4 students who sought counseling, all of them sought help from counselors outside of school, possibly suggesting that children feel more comfortable seeking help from a counselor outside of school versus counselor in school. Next, I looked at the data from the students whose parents had gone through a divorce. I compared the answers on the questions: if your parents were to divorce, how likely is it that you would seek support from a counselor at school? Their responses were shown in the graph above. Although the most common answer for both questions was not at all likely, with 19 out of 42 students answering not at all likely on the first question, and 15 out of 38 answering not at all likely on the second question. Despite most of the answers for both questions being not at all likely, I was still able to compare the answers and deduce whether students would rather seek the support of a counselor or a counselor in school. Since the total number of students that answered each question was different, I compared the frequency of the answers selected in terms of percentages, instead of the number of students. The percentages of students who selected somewhat likely, very likely, and extremely likely for the question, if your parents were to divorce, how likely is it that you would seek the support of a counselor, was 38% compared to the 35% of students who selected the 3 answers stated above to the question, if your parents were to divorce, how likely is it that you would seek the support of a counselor outside of school? Although the 2 percentages are only 3% apart, it is still significant in showing that students feel that the counselors at school are well enough equipped to handle a problem as significant as the divorce of their parents. These counselors are free to talk to and available whenever, which can break down barriers for those students who feel that counselors outside of school are too expensive or that they don't have enough time to see a counselor. Some limitations to my study is that I only surveyed students at Shadle Park, which isn't very representative of the entire United States, so it can't be applied on a broad scale, and that students didn't take the survey very seriously and didn't follow the directions at all. The conclusion of my survey is that the effects of divorce on children can be severe and long-lasting, but no child should be disadvantaged based on an event that is out of their control. But these effects may be lessening, although a small number of students reported that they would go see a counselor of any kind in their parents' divorce, or that they did see a counselor in their parents' divorce. This is significant in showing that children are willing to seek help during a traumatic life event, which can therefore lessen the effects of their parents' divorce on them. This fact, coupled with the fact that moral acceptability of divorce in the United States is at an all-time high and students are more likely to help one another if their parents are going through divorce, may suggest that the effects of divorce on children are lessening. I propose that although it may be expensive, researchers should emulate the studies conducted during the divorce revolution to ensure that the United States is moving in the right direction when it comes to today's youth.
Haleigh, what was one obstacle or challenge you encountered while performing the research, and how did you address it?
One obstacle I found was I didn't exactly know how to go about my methods section. I couldn't just access a student's records or just walk up to students and be like, hey, are you divorced? So I decided to look at the attitudes of students who weren't from a divorced family and students who were to see like the likelihood of those students in seeking counseling.
Well, how might your conclusions relate to the current body of work in the field?
Well, most of the credible surveys I found were taken from the divorce revolution, so there wasn't a whole lot that I could pull from for today. So my conclusion should be implemented that they need to reproduce those surveys to see how today's youth is compared to the past.
If you had 3 more months to work on this research project, what additional research strategies would you put into practice?
I think I'd look at sources more in depth. I think I just kind of skimmed the surface and I didn't understand. I think I would take those 3 months to fully understand sources, maybe find some that showed the same thing, so I had more sources showing one thing instead of just one side.
Okay, good job.
Done. Good work.